Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I am delighted to have the amazing Daniel Laskewitz. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you on. Amusingly, I have actually been in Holland at various times over the last couple of years, but we have not yet met in person. Note the yet. We will at some point meet up and talk
Yeah, we
about
should.
stroopwafels and stuff.
Stroopwafels are really, really good.
They are really, really good. But what I actually wanted to ask you about in terms of one of your hobbies is not stroopwafels, but I understand that you brew beer.
Yeah, I do that. I have been doing that for a very long time. I once started with a simple do-it-yourself kit, and that wasn't a great success. But after that, we were like, yeah, I was there with my brother-in-law, and we were just really interested in the whole brewing process. And then we started doing it more and more and more. And it actually goes a lot better now. And we also have like a big kettle where you can brew your beer really easily, because I'm lazy and I just
Okay.
program the thing and then it goes goes through.
So this was just something that you just happened to stumble into, essentially.
Yeah. So I like beer. That's the thing.
It
And then
seems to be a
yeah.
cultural thing. For those people who aren't aware, of course, Daniel is from the Netherlands, where beer is
Mhm.
a very popular topic in many other countries as well, admittedly.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting in the Netherlands because the Netherlands is not particularly known for great beers, because a lot of people, especially when you ask our southern neighbors, they totally hate Heineken, and that's like the famous beer in the Netherlands. But yeah, it changed a lot because the last couple of years, or actually the last 12 years, probably 12 to 15 years, a lot of microbreweries came through, and those got really big.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of pretty good breweries in the Netherlands, and there's lots of people that do home brewery stuff, like me, for instance. So yeah, it's cool.
Have you ever been tempted to start up your own microbrewery and productionalize things?
I'm not yeah, we're not that good at it. So no,
Yet.
not really.
Yet.
Yeah, I don't know. We like brewing our beer, and some of it is actually pretty good, but sometimes we still make really bad mistakes. And yeah, I remember from a pretty well-known brewery in the Netherlands, Brouwerij Het Ei, which is in Amsterdam. They are now pretty decent with all their beers, but they once interviewed a guy that was there at the beginning, and he said, well, sometimes we had a week where there was a brewing going on and it was really bad, and then you had to drink pretty bad beer for a week. So yeah, it happens.
So if you were theoretically bottle your beer and do it, what would you have on your beer label? Because I've seen some, especially microbreweries, there's some really interesting designs on labels. So if you had to just pick immediately, I'm putting you on the spot here, what would your
Yeah,
label have on it?
so the Dutch word for brother-in-law is zwager.
Okay.
And what we always wanted to put on our beers was zwagerlager, because that just sounds really cool. And that's what we try to do. But we haven't done that yet. But I already thought about that before, so I'm kind of cheating. But we talked about it, and we thought, well, maybe we have we are gonna name it Zwagerlager.
Nice.
So
Well,
it's kind of a, yeah.
you're prepared when the day comes. You're prepared. I'm sure you've got it, copyright and trademark on the
Oh,
thing.
that's it. I should get a domain for it. Yeah,
You should get it.
good
You
one.
don't have the domain, or come on. You should. I would expect you to have the domain.
I should get it totally.
You should totally get it. So going from your love of beer and all things Netherlands and stuff to the Oops Factor, what do you have to share?
Yeah, so I really like telling stories about when I kind of up. And
Up.
it's fucked up. So
Oh,
that's kind of I always like to share that. And most of my stories, luckily, are from the beginning of my career, when I just started. So I can start with when I applied to my previous employer. It's a French company, and I applied to that when I just came out of school.
okay.
And I was applying to a role, and I thought, well, it's young professional, so it was kind of a traineeship. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good, because I totally didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I applied for the role, but what I didn't realize was that I already chose a subject for young professional traineeship. And that's how I ended up in SharePoint. That's actually true.
Hold on, hold
Because
on. Your SharePoint career was totally accidental.
yes, totally. So that was really, really funny, because I Googled for traineeships, and I was looking at a couple of websites, and the French company looked the best to me, because they looked like it was a fun company to work for. And I just applied, and then at my interview, the manager, my future manager, was asking me, well, what do you know of SharePoint? And I was like, well, not a lot. I used it when I was in school, and that's about it. And he really laughed so hard about that, but he thought it was so it was a good thing that I was just going for it, and that I wanted to try out all kinds of things. That's also why I applied for a traineeship, because I totally didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to try out all kinds of companies, all kinds of
Sure.
types of work. And that was why a traineeship in consulting was really interesting for me, to try out all the different companies. And the funny part is also that I was trying, I wanted to try it out for like 2 years. So I wanted to try out for 2 years the traineeship. I wanted to try out all different companies. Well, the first thing what went really wrong was that I stayed at my first client for more than 2 years. So that was the first one. And then after that, I stayed for like 9.5 years, and I left only a couple months back. So yeah, it was way longer than I expected. And
You must really have loved SharePoint.
well, I did SharePoint for a couple of years, and then the Power Platform came along, and I chose the easy exit. But I still like SharePoint. It's for me, it's still a fun product to work with, because I know everything about it. So that's also, then that makes it automatically a lot more fun.
I'm really glad you just used that phrase, because now I can say officially that if I have any SharePoint questions, I will now come to you.
Well, you're always welcome to.
So you fell into a consulting job with it, and obviously as a even apprenticeship, obviously on day one when you went to see a client, you knew everything about the product, because as a consultant we have to know everything.
No. It started, and I really like that, by the way, the whole traineeship, because it started with 2 months, it was 2 months of training. The first month we went to the USA for like it was kind of a pressure cooker. So they put you in a team, and you had 3 weeks of training, every week with a different team. And then they kind of pushed on you as hard as they could. And a lot of people were not used to that, because they just came straight out of college, and they started in that training, and they were like, oh, fun, we're going to the USA, and it's going to be fun. And then it was like full on pressure on those people, and they experienced stuff that they didn't experience before. And that was really good, because a lot of those people, they learn a lot from it. For me, it was a little bit, I was used to it, because I had some work experience where we had a lot of pressure on that as well. And that was for me, it was a lot easier. But there were some younger people who were really, really impressed by how much pressure they got on them. And yeah, I think that you learn a lot from that when you're under that much pressure. But after that, they just try to learn you everything. You have to pass all the certification exams, etc. So nothing changed a lot since then. It's still the same with all the consultancy firms. Everybody is getting all kinds of fundamental exams and all
True.
those, the whole list of exams, of course.
And of course, I'm sure you're absolutely on top of all of your certifications.
Oh, totally. I have everything in Power Platform.
Nice.
I really, before I started at Microsoft, I wanted to finish everything, so I did. And yeah, I already had a couple of them, but I was impressed that SharePoint. I have the Microsoft 365 fundamentals. I did another one there, but not the whole list. That's kind of
Well, you can always go back to it, I guess, and do more of them.
Yeah, maybe I will. That would be fun.
Your Microsoft goals for the year. Although you are, of course, a Power Platform developer advocate, your goal for the year could be pass the SharePoint exams.
Yeah, maybe I could, because I already have the Power Platform, so I should think of something, right?
Yeah. I mean, Azure, well, why go to Azure? Just go to SharePoint.
I also have some Azure certificates, so yeah, I can go both ways.
I do
Maybe
remember
I
seeing
should
on
do
social
Dynamics.
media. I do remember seeing on social media you posting about the number of exams that you were taking, and I was highly impressed and slightly jealous.
Yeah, so I had a couple of weeks before I switched jobs, and that was when I was just doing all those exams, and yeah, it was pretty easy for me.
So you fell into the kind of the SharePoint consulting gig because you were going for that junior sort of role and learning it, and that was sort of by accident because you hadn't realized there was there. And you stayed for a while, obviously pivoting across the Power Platform. Did you fall into your role with Microsoft by accident as well?
Yeah, not really. The thing that happened before was actually that I always thought I was gonna end up somewhere at Microsoft. I always wanted to see the other side of the spectrum, of course, because implementing the whole thing is completely different than promoting it or yeah, creating the product or help create the product. It's completely different. Of course, for me, I was an MVP before I started at Microsoft.
That is true.
And that's kind of the developer advocacy role that I have now. But for me, that was always on top of my normal job. So I always did that outside of the hours I did for my job. I always did community conferences, etc. And now I get to do that in my job, and that's pretty awesome.
You're paid to do it.
But yeah, and I really like that because it saves me also some time, so I have time for new hobbies, probably more beer brewery stuff.
I was just about to mention brewing more.
Yeah,
it's amazing this conversation just keeps coming back to beer.
Yeah, really amazing. I don't know why. But, no, but yeah, the role at Microsoft, I have been asked to join Microsoft for a couple of times.
Nice.
But they always wanted me at the Netherlands part of the Microsoft, and that's more the sales part. So it's more of technical sales or the real sales part. And I didn't have the ambition for that. So I really wanted to join the international part. And
maybe if they had installed a beer tap in the Microsoft Amsterdam office, that could have gotten you there earlier.
I think they have a mobile beer tap there, which they roll out when there's events, etc. But that wouldn't change my mind. No. I really like the international part of Microsoft because it's more of the product building, the product evangelizing, etc.
Yeah.
And I don't really like the sales part, and that's just because I'm not really good at sales. So that's why I didn't really want to go that road. But because of COVID, it actually changed, because before COVID, it was pretty hard to get a remote job. Also at Microsoft. There were only a few people that had that, and COVID changed everything. So Microsoft was completely okay with remote roles. And you can see the company change as well, because the Microsoft is also more looking into the benefits of having remote workers, because for instance, if you look at Europe, if you have some developer advocates there, you don't have to travel all your product group people from Redmond to Europe all the time for all those events. That saves a lot of money, also a lot of time. And
such a shame, all of those
that,
Americans who are no longer going to experience the joys of Europe and good beer.
There will still be people there, of course, and they will still do that, but I think the frequency will go down. And I think that's also what Microsoft wants to show the world, because they are all about the environment, etc. And of course, they don't want a lot of air traffic, because that's also bad for the environment, etc. So,
yes, we are well aware of that. So if you look back, you know, obviously the career path was not one that you had planned and set out. Would you have done anything different at the beginning, or you know, if you could go back and change something?
Yeah, well, probably the implementation parts where I did some boo-boos. That would be really. I can tell you another one, by the way. That's also a fun story. When I just started in SharePoint, you have like when you share a website, you have the share button, and then you can share it with people. You can just add them to the box, and then you can enter a message, and you had a button there for show advanced options, and then you could disable some kind of checkbox, and then it wouldn't send an email. Like the first year that I worked with SharePoint, I had to share a website to the whole organization, and that was everyone. So imagine putting everyone into that box and just leaving the box with the email blank. But then don't click the advanced button and uncheck the box, but just click share. So everybody got an email invite from Daniel. I shared the website
imagine.
with you, etc. Yes. So yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. Are fun.
when I need to set up SharePoint at some point, you know, I'll just contact you, and then you can get it done for me, because you know the product so well.
I'll tell you enough about the checkbox.
you can point me in the right direction for it.
Exactly. Please check that one.
Noted. But Daniel, thank you so much for your time in coming on the show. It's been wonderful to discuss things with you and find out about your history of how you accidentally landed up in this.
Well, thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Feel free to take a look at the rest of the Oops Factor playlist episodes, subscribe to the channel, take a look at the blog. If you would like to come on the show yourself, please hit the link in the description below, put in your details, and I'll drop you a line. Also, if you're ever in Amsterdam, please feel free to drop Daniel a line and go out for a beer, because I'm sure he will enjoy it. But above all, have an amazing day.